Alright, y'all, let's get started on putting the elastic in the elastic side seam option for the ruched top and dress. Starting just by pinning or clipping at the top notch just under the armpit, and then whatever the lowest notches you have. I'm doing a maxi option here. It's actually a youth version. I know you might say, you didn't put out a youth version of this dress, but I drafted it just in my daughter's size so I could have a smaller youth size for videos and pictures. So this is in fact a smaller youth size, even though it's not available in the shop. All right, now I'm going to use a basting stitch, which is the longest straight stitch. Most machines go to a 5 length. You want to make sure you pull out some thread tails before you start. I'm just going from that top notch to the bottom notch, and I'm using 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's really helpful if you use 1/4 inch seam allowance because when you add the elastic in, you want it to butt up right against that 1/4 inch. So it's a perfect little guide for you. Now I'm going to do one more row of basting stitches, and I'm going to do this one about 5/8 inch away from the edge. I highly suggest not skipping this. I know it seems like an extra unnecessary step, but having the gathering in a basting stitch and being held in place on both sides of the elastic is what's going to give you that really beautiful gathers. You're not going to lose any of your gathering. It's not going to be eased in, which is what's going to happen if you only do one row of basting stitches. Or even if you just stretch your elastic to fit, a lot of times your gathers kind of get lost. I'm just pinning at the notches, the top one and the bottom one here. You don't want any gathering at the very top and very bottom of your elastic. It's too hard to get started stitching if you have gathers immediately on the very ends of your elastic. I recommend 1/2 inch. I use a pin here, and whatever my pin takes up, it does not get any gathering. That way I have a little section of elastic where I can just stitch it without any gathers or any worry of anything moving around, just 1 to 1. I like to find the center kind of marking just by stretching and pinning it in place. You don't have to do that, but especially on the adult, it's kind of a long ways to gather it super evenly without at least finding one point. I'm going to pull my bobbin basting threads now until it's about even with the elastic, and then just kind of move them around until I'm happy with them. Again, I don't put any gathers at the very top of my elastic or very bottom of my elastic. Makes it much easier to stitch on that way. And again, I use that 1/4 inch basting mark to line my elastic up too. This is 1/4 inch elastic. I used swim elastic here instead of clear elastic for the sole purpose of being easier to see in the video and pictures. Normally I use clear elastic, but I just thought it was much easier to see. And now I'm just basting it on, and I'm going to do a close-up here so you can see I have it just right up against that 1/4 inch basting line. And since I gathered my fabric to fit the elastic, there's no need to stretch anything here. I'm also, again, just using a basting stitch here, just making sure that elastic doesn't go anywhere that I don't want it to be. Especially clear elastic can be, you know, a little bit finicky depending on the brand you have and whatnot. I do highly suggest stretching your elastic out a few times before cutting it. That way it's already stretched out. It's not going to get stretched out anymore when you baste it on and things like that. All right, so now that it's basted on, I'm going to do my final stitch. I'm going to use a serger. You can use your sewing machine if that's what you want to use your final stitch with. And I'm going to do another close-up here and show you how I line up my serger knife right on that 1/4 inch basting mark. So I'm not trimming my elastic at all. I'm just trimming that 1/4 inch to the right of my elastic. Here we go. And of course, if you're a beginner, if this is your first time, you're gonna have to go super slow here. Nice and careful not to trim your elastic at all. I'm doing the maxi option, so I'm gonna come off the side here so I can do my side split. If you're doing another option, you'll just go straight down the side seam. I hope this video helps, and I can't wait to see yours all sewn up.